Yes, good afternoon, guys. You're listening to Wait Out Radio with DJ Paula Frost, and I hope you're all doing well out there. We've got a very special treat for you now. The fantastic TV Smith is here, and it's great to have him on the show because he's got an amazing new album out, which we've been listening to loads at the station, and we'll be playing for you today. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm fine, thank you, Paula. Nice to see you, hear you.
Yeah, nice to see you and hear you as well. So, where are you at the moment? Is this the home studio?
I'm in my home studio, yeah, which is in the middle of deepest Devon, right on the edge of Dartmoor. And yeah,
Excellent. It looks very Star Trek. It looks is that like is that kind of like soundproofing at the back there?
it's actually the cupboards full of merch.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think I need some of those. It's just like t-shirt and badge chaos in the loft at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, on the album, you mentioned that well, like on the press release, you say that you've recorded the first song in your home studio and then everything followed suit from there. I mean, I just wanted to know, like, first of all, it's genius to have a home studio and it's like the height of DIY to just like be able to go through an experience like this and be able to still create and write songs. So, how long did it take you to put the studio together, and how long have you been having your own home studio?
Well, thing about these days is a home studio is basically a room with a computer in it.
Yeah.
Basically, particularly if you're a solo like me, I'm just guitar and vocal, and so I've had a succession of home studios really, and the first of which was just a little shed in my garden when I lived in London. But as long as I can put a laptop down with some music software in it, then that works as a home studio. I mean, since I moved back down to Devon, I've had the luck to have a slightly more sophisticated setup. It's a bit more room, and in the end though, it's a computer, a guitar, and some microphones. The most important thing is what goes on, in your head and what your ideas are. And I've never been one that believes you make better music in more expensive studios. It's all about what you've got to say and what you want to write.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally agree with that. That's why I'm a massive fan of punk and reggae because I love the fact that, like Paul McCartney was flying over to Jamaica to use Lee Perry's little studio in the back of his family home. And, I love the fact that punk overtook the charts with, just great ideas from young people who were angry. So, yeah, I love that DIY ethic. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, it used to be. I mean, the thing is, pre-punk, you felt excluded from it. You thought, well, I mean, I remember feeling, well, it's all very well, all these bands, but how do I get in? And
Yeah.
it was so big and so monolithic, and everything was done. It was so expensive that people who had a few ideas and just wanted to get them out there didn't have a way in. I mean, and that is really why punk happened, because there was a load of us going, well, we want to make music too. Why should we not be allowed to, just because we haven't got the money to buy time in an expensive studio?
Yeah, definitely. No, I was watching some footage of you with the adverts earlier, and it was like 1978, and you're like shirtless, and you're just like going for it on the lead vocals, and it's just really amazing to witness. I mean, it must have been amazing for you to just find that not only did you have the passion to want to go up there on stage, and you had the bottle to do it, but you looked great doing it as well, and people really responded to it.
Yeah, it was a really exciting time. But that's the thing is, we did, you know, you smash the doors down, and suddenly you find that actually there's all this pent up anger, and people wanted it. The audience were there. It wasn't just you up on stage doing it. Everyone was with you. You felt like they wanted to be part of it. You could be. It wasn't like Paul McCartney or or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, where they were some kind of distant thing, and you were nothing to do with it. The audiences felt like we felt. We all, and it created this incredible energy in the room. So everyone felt they were on the same side.
Yeah, excellent, man. And then, so in 2020 at the start, I mean, you started out well. You were playing shows in the UK, Germany, you even flew out to Gran Canaria. I mean, what was your reaction to the COVID news initially? And what was the hardest part of the cancellations?
Well, we were already worried before we went out on. I was doing the Stiff Little Fingers tour, which we got through 3 dates before it got to be cancelled, And there was already that feeling before we even went out to start the tour. Well, we don't know if we're going to get through this, but
Yeah.
there was, people, the government advice: wash your hands for 30 seconds. You'll be fine. Just wash your hands a lot. It really wasn't taken seriously, and it escalated so fast. And my feeling, particularly now, is that the rest of Europe was locking down and taking it seriously, and we weren't. And it's because of that I ended up catching the virus. So I personally, the day the tour got shut down was the day I caught the virus. And I thought if the government had actually reacted in a strong way and locked things down earlier, I shouldn't have been allowed to go on tour. If
Yeah.
we had all the information that they had about what was actually going on, we should have been told to stay at home and not go around spreading it around and catching it ourselves. So I feel personally quite bitter that what I consider to be total mismanagement of the crisis, hit me personally, and I know it hit a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised you feel that way because I mean I'm sure it's a resounding feeling, especially in the punk world and beyond. But it was just so badly managed, and it's so sad to hear that you suffered so badly, you and your partner. I'm sorry that you got ill. I mean, what was it like for you? Were you struggling to breathe, or were you just stuck in bed?
Well, it went through a lot of different phases, really. I mean, there was no question in our case that we had it because we literally couldn't get out of bed. You couldn't stand up for the first couple of days, and then fever and a lot of pains and a lot of very, very hard virus to describe. It really felt like something very unusual was in your body and messing around with you, and nothing like anything I've ever experienced before. And it's led to a lot of sort of long-lasting fatigue and various issues. And I can only really say I'm feeling like I'm pulling out a bit now, 7 months later, to be honest.
Wow, yeah, no, that is intense. And you mentioned something that I thought was something that didn't occur to me straight away, but like if you're on tour, you know, it's not just the merch that people are buying and selling, or like it's not just customers. Like you got that distance initially when you're on stage, but when you're off stage, people want a photo. They want to come up to you and shake your hand, and it's really difficult to distance yourself without just coming across as like really like ignorant or something. So
Yeah.
that's a massive challenge as well.
Yeah, well, the thing was that the whole idea of distancing wasn't really around at that point, not in early March. People didn't really understand the virus or what you should do. I mean, there's this kind of gimmick that you didn't shake hands, you just bumped elbows. But to be honest, at a gig, yeah, you're standing at the merch. That's one of the things about the whole democratization of punk with the music industry. We all go to the merch, we all chat to everyone. Yes, they do sling their arms around your shoulder and want a photo and give you a big sweaty kiss on the cheek. It just is that, I mean, the ironic thing was I know exactly when I caught it, and it wasn't at one of the gigs. It was queuing up for coffee at a service station on the way to the final gig because
Yeah.
um, someone sneezed in front of us, and we just know that was the moment when we caught the virus.
Yeah, no, that's such a shame, and like, what a just mad chance that that person was just like shouldn't could have just covered their mouth and saved you from all that. That's just a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Um,
It's it's a must. I'm happy to be alive. To be honest, a lot of people aren't. So although it was pretty much a disaster at the time, on the other hand, you do feel like you have got some sort of immunity afterwards, and so you sort of stop living in fear a little bit. And
yeah, because Toots Hibbert died, and Dave Grenfell from the Stranglers
yeah,
died as well of it. So it is it's pretty shocking, really. I mean, I'm sure that that must have hit you quite hard, that news for
it's
Dave.
absolutely, yeah. And and others have suffered a lot worse than me. I know Reckless Eric, for example, had a COVID-induced heart attack after he had it. Um, yeah, well, you got to be grateful for the good things in life, and it does really sharpen your appreciation of life. you know, when you've had a serious illness, and I feel happy to be alive.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, the album's called Lockdown Holiday, and the single was Lockdown Holiday as well on the album. So, I mean, that is highlighting some of the good things that have come out of it, some of the blessings that have come along with the lockdown. So, tell me a bit about how you looked on the bright side of what was happening.
Well, my life has been for the last sort of 5 or 10 years literally non-stop touring. And so when I was suddenly, because of lockdown and because of catching the virus, you know, that all stopped. In many ways, it was like pressing the restart button, you know, for me. Like everything shut down and then everything started up again, and I was able to kind of have the chance to really look at what was going on in the world and in my life. And so I did actually try and take that as a really positive opportunity to look at what was going on, and that's really where the inspiration for the record came. Um, I, I wasn't suddenly having to pack my bags and go back out on the road again. Much as I loved it, uh, I hadn't had a chance to pause for breath for years and years, and there was so much going on, you know, in the
Yeah.
world and in society that it was really kind of inspirational when I just started writing, and the songs started coming in a way that hasn't happened for quite a long time. I've been labouring over songs over the last few albums, really trying to get them right and overthinking them in a way, whereas this album really flowed.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a really great album. I'm really enjoying it. So, I mean, tell us a bit about the cover photo because I know that it's taken with a pinhole camera, and you've mentioned before that it's like the last picture taken before everything went wrong. So, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot to me. Yeah, it means a lot to me. It was the day before I caught the virus, as it happened, on the second gig of the tour with Stiff Little Fingers and the Professionals, and at Bristol Academy, and there was a guy backstage who was taking pictures of the musicians, and he had this big old-fashioned pinhole camera set up on the stairway leading to the stage, and he would just try to grab me just before I went down to do my gig, and the tour was just starting off. I had a year of 56 gigs in front of me, and I feel was full of hope and optimism and excitement about what was coming, and you can sort of see it on the photo. Somehow you can just see it in my face, and it was literally the day before when everything fell apart. The next day I caught the virus. Was the last day of the Stiff Little Fingers tour. Had to come home and isolate, and as I say, that was the start of the restart.
Wow.
So it was kind of ironic to have that that picture full of hope. Just to, it's certainly life teaches you some hard lessons.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was no, so that's a really cool picture, and it's good. Like when you first see it, you think, "Oh, that's a nice cover photo," and then when you look into the story behind it, then it's, "Oh, I think I better have another look at that photo."
Yeah, yeah. And
So
so I've actually I've never done an album cover before. I put my own picture on the front, but that one was kind of felt it had to be done.
yeah, with a portrait on the front, yeah, and it works. It's good. So
I
the
love the quality of those pinhole cameras, the graininess, the real analog. We're in a world where everything is digital and sharp and perfect, and I love that kind of grainy look. Really,
yeah,
it has a sort of atmosphere to it.
yeah, definitely. I think you can even get a filter on your phone to get that style, like bring it all the way back. So I wanted to ask you about the first track you recorded for the album, which was the Lucky One. So you've decided to put every track in order of which it was written, which is really cool. Um, so one of your lyrics is, "It's hard to believe it, but we're the lucky ones." So yeah, just tell us about that.
I started writing, initially I just planning to write one song. I certainly wasn't intending to write a whole album. So I thought, well, I'm just going to write about what happened, about being on the road, and the way it all fell apart. And that was the way I started writing that song. But then I was like, well, I'm in the West. I've got, someone to come and giving me food parcels. I'm eating. You know, I've got a bed. I'm warm. You know, what's it like for someone in a refugee camp who catches a virus or anyway? You know, so there's no point me kind of moaning about how awful it is. Catching the coronavirus. I mean, and having my gigs taken away from me. Actually, the fact is, we are the lucky ones. I am lucky. I'm lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to be reasonably comfortable. And so what I started off thinking, well, I'm going to write a song moaning about how awful life is. I thought, actually, it's not awful at all. I'm really lucky. And what we should be looking at is the people who are worse off than ourselves, not complaining about our own situation.
Yeah, totally. And I think that the media seem to have put a blanket over things like on TV and mainstream radio, saying we can only put out positive stuff, we've got to keep people calm. But actually, if we did know more about like refugee camps or what was happening in the hospitals, I don't think we would be angry, but I think people might be a little bit more humble and appreciative, because we've seen a lot of people whinging, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't take much to get the British moaning. Yeah, I mean, the coverage of some of the things that are going on in the world has just totally disappeared off mainstream media, which is shocking. I mean, some of the stuff that's going on in those Greek refugee camps in Lesbos, while we were complaining about the virus, and was absolutely shocking. Camps getting burned down. The rest of the world's problems don't go away just because there's a pandemic. In fact, they get worse. And the gap between the way people are suffering in the rich West and the way people are suffering in the poor third world is just going to get bigger and bigger. And we'll have our vaccine and we'll all be sorted and up and running again, by next summer. But that won't be the case in most of the rest of the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even like with my gigs being cancelled, I thought to myself, like, it was just unfathomable to me that a gig would ever be cancelled. Like, the show must go on, and like it was just so steadfast in my head. And when the
Yeah.
first one went, I was like, this is devastating. But obviously it was just like the whole world was going down with me. So then once the first one was initially scary, and then I just foresaw the whole year being knocked out, and I was like, oh well,
Yeah.
I sort of like got over it. So I was just
I
like,
think that's what we've all done really. It's like, first of all, it's a total catastrophe, and then you kind of like you do readjusting. Well, okay, this is
yeah,
this is the new reality, and there's no point fighting against it and moaning about it. It simply is the way it is. And I'm the strongest kind of campaigner for personal liberty and freedom that you're ever going to find. But the fact is, in a situation like this, it's right to not do gigs. It's right not to have hospitality venues open. And the point is that you at these kind of points you have to sacrifice personal liberty for the general good. You go out to a gig, you kill your granny. It's that simple. So I totally agree with civil liberties being taken away for this period. What's important is that when this is over, that we get them back again.
yeah, exactly. And you've documented the whole period for yourself as like almost like a diary. I mean, you've said this is as close as you've ever got to a concept album, and it really rides the wave of like hope and dismay, because you got songs like Send in the Clown, which is like, I imagine, talking about like political incompetence. And then I Surf the Second Wave, where you're adopting the persona of the virus and waiting to reappear. And that's what we're kind of in now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, would you say it's a concept album or just a diary?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit less pretentious to just call it a diary. I mean, because I wrote the songs all for literally, I'd finish one song and then I'd start the next day. I hadn't even planned it that way. But the thing was, I found that one song would then inspire kind of ideas that I wanted to get down. I didn't want to just leave it there. There was more to say, so one would lead on to another, and it's very kind of very exciting way to write, because you find phrases and even words would reappear in later songs. So in that sense, it is a kind of a concept album, because there is a very strong connection between all the songs. I mean, not unplanned, I've got to say. I had no intention of writing a full album, let alone a concept album. It's only 2 years since my last album came out. I never write that fast. So so yeah, it's a bit of both, I suppose.
Yeah, excellent. So this is the 16th album that you've recorded, and your career spans over 40 years. Like, do you have any idea how many songs you've actually written?
No, I don't really. No, I've no idea. Many hundreds.
I'll have to
I've
count them up afterwards.
I've got about a kind of a vague stock of 200 or 300 that I could play at gigs.
Yeah. And do you change the set list every night?
Yeah, every night.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
And
it depends on the audience, depends on the venue, depends on how I'm feeling. You know, there's a kind of core structure that I have been more or less keeping to, but you know, when live gigs start up again, I suspect it will all be even that will be quite different. I'm actually I would like at the moment to go out and play the songs just as they are on the album, because that's the way they come to me. You know, I would love to play them in that order, in that way, but of course we don't know when gigs are coming back, so I might be onto something else by then.
yeah, no, that's true, isn't it? There's like the Fontaines DC and Idols, they were on a big wave before this lockdown, and then they've just released albums within lockdown, and it's just kind of like a big fuss, but like everyone's individually in their home having a fuss, and then it just kind of simmers down. It's really weird.
Nobody knows. Yeah,
So
it's interesting, where you know, particularly for people who are very driven, to actually say, well, actually, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's kind of like, say, you know, stop stressing out. You know, whatever happens, happens. It's almost like kind of therapy.
yeah,
When you can't fight it, when there's nothing you can do about it, you simply have to accept it.
yeah, definitely. So, of the 16 albums you've done in your career, you mentioned that this latest one you've had a little bit more time to yourself, so it was much easier to write. I mean, what are some of the hardest albums for like that took to come together? I mean, were there any albums that you just thought weren't going to work, or like that took a few years longer than the others?
I certainly have had albums that have taken years where it's not really been flowing. I've had to kind of force myself to write, or you know, or songs. I think I mentioned earlier, you know, because I'm very you know, the lyrics are so important to me that I sometimes think that if I'm not saying it exactly right, then I have to really, you know, write and overwrite and overwrite. I don't know, I can't think really what would be a good example of that, to be honest. But you know, it often happens with individual songs that, you know, that I'm still like, I haven't got it right 5 years later. I'll say, oh God, I'm going to finish this one off now and put it on the next album. But yeah, so I'll often have an album where one of the songs, or you know, has been lying around unfinished for quite a few years. I mean, I can literally write a song in a day, or or it can take 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. That's really cool. So, I wanted to ask you a bit about lyrics, because obviously you're a fantastic lyricist and you've written for so long. I mean, who are some of the poets that inspire you? I mean, are you a fan of like John Cooper Clarke at all?
Yeah, I love John Cooper Clarke. Yeah, so I suppose the my inspiration really was from bands, you know, before I was in a band myself. So, you know, I always loved bands that had good lyrics. I always loved, you know, Bowie, I loved Dylan. Um, if songs don't say anything in the lyrics, I'm not generally all that interested unless it's a real killer tune.
Yeah, yeah. I think like if I listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers, then I think this is really good music, but I don't know what he's going on about as a lyricist. And that's
Yeah,
probably one of the only bands that can get away with it. But most bands, if you don't have a good lyricist, then you're just not gonna, it's not gonna work, is it?
it depends what you want out of music. Of course, if all you
Yeah,
want is something to, you know, get you going and dance around a bit, then there's lots of bands that will do that. It's just happens to be not my thing. I mean, there's no right or wrong. Music is whatever you want out of it. But for me personally, it's always been about getting some content out of the lyrics, and that's what I've always tried to provide in mine.
Yeah. And are you a fan of any other like poets in particular? Like, I wondered if you like Charles Bukowski at all.
Yeah, I love Charles Bukowski. Yeah, I've read most of his stuff, the novels and quite a bit of the poetry as well.
Cool. All right. So, are there any songs you've written over the years that you can't listen to anymore?
Um, I mean, I don't generally listen to listen to my stuff anyway. Yeah. Um, so I'm not aware of anything that really disappoints me so much that I can't listen to it. I usually when it comes to I usually only listen to my old stuff when it comes to a re-release or something, and then I have to kind of put the record on again and re-listen to it. And to be honest, I'm usually pleasantly surprised. Sometimes you put old records, in the back of your mind, I think, oh God, that probably sounds awful now. But usually when I put them on again, I'm pleased with them.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's true. And so I know back in the day you toured with the Damned and Iggy Pop. I just wanted to ask you, like, who had the worst behaviour?
Oh, the Damned was shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lovable shocking. But being in a midi bus with Captain Sensible and Rat Scabies was never going to be a kind of a comfortable experience. They were always up for a prank or strange shaving foam about or whatever. You very rarely came out of a van from one gig to another with those two unscathed.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard that he sunk a boat once, Captain Sensible. He ended up at Crass's dial house at one point, and Penny managed to turn him vegetarian. So someone got through to him a little bit at one point, which is good.
Captain's always been as long as I've known him, he's been vegetarian and a very strong supporter of animal rights.
Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah, me
Once
too. I'm a veggie.
I was on tour with him with Dead Men Walking a few years back, and far from the sort of bad behaviour days of the Damned. A much reformed Captain Sensible. We stopped at a service station once to fill up with petrol, and you got hold of the water spray that's supposed to be for washing the cars, and he sprayed me all over with it. He said, "Sorry, Steve, I just couldn't stop myself." That little bit of him in there, he just can't help it.
He's just got no recall. He has an idea and he has to follow it through.
Exactly, yeah.
So the guys have recently said that they're going to reform. So I mean, have you seen? Do you still see the Damned? Are you still friends?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, I haven't seen Brian for a long while, but I do bump into him occasionally every now and then. Yeah,
Yeah,
not very much lately, to be honest.
yeah. Of course, we haven't bumped into anyone this year.
No, yeah.
So I mean, Rebellion is somewhere that I see you a lot. I've seen you play all over the place, London, Ramsgate, and lots of times at Rebellion and different festivals. But I mean, just wanted to ask, what's your relationship like with Rebellion Festival, and like how many times have you played?
Well, I've played every one since.
Wow.
So I suppose not. I don't know. What was it? 98 or something I think was the first one. Could that be right? So I was the first person to play a solo gig at Rebellion, and I've played it at least once every year since then, sometimes 4 or 5 times over the course of the weekend. I think my biggest one was a couple of years ago when I did 2 solo shows, 2 band shows, and a couple of guest spots with other bands. So yeah, me and Rebellion have pretty much been an item since it started out.
Cool. So if you were the first acoustic act to play, I mean, I guess does that mean you pioneered the like almost acoustic stage, but now you're too big for it, so they put you on the opera house?
Yeah, that is sort of what happened. Yeah, I mean, if the people weren't able to get into the acoustic stage, I was getting I was starting to get a bit annoyed about it really, because I had people complaining to me that they couldn't get in the room, and
Yeah.
so I had a word with Jenny and Darren, the organisers, about it, and so they bumped me up to the opera, which is quite extraordinary, really. But it was such a beautiful venue, and at least everyone could get in, so it was a really nice thing. And I was going to do that again this year, until, of course, we all know what happened.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was really looking forward to it this year. It's a great lineup. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So you've had a really long career and you've been signed to a lot of different record labels. You've always remained like that punk DIY ethic behind the scenes. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what was the good and bad signs of that? Because it's kept you going throughout like the turbulence of the music industry, where we've seen a huge change over the last 40 years.
Mm. Well, I mean, I'm basically DIY because a point in the 80s, after punk and after the Explorers, no one was interested in me. So, the thing was either it was DIY or die. I wouldn't have been able to keep going unless I did it myself, literally. And so I did it myself, and I found out I liked doing it like that. I liked having the, control over what went on and not having other people saying what I was supposed to be doing or telling me what I was supposed to be doing. And what you do is you miss the big prize of the chart records and all that kind of stuff, but you stay in touch with your audience, and you stay in touch with your own career and your own songwriting, and everything else that goes with it, from the artwork to the gigs. It's all down to how you want to do it. So it is a way of keeping keeping focus and keeping direction. Whereas when working with record labels and that kind of thing can be actually quite distracting and knock you off course. And now, I mean, I do work with labels, small labels sometimes, if I think they can help me out, but I go and choose them. They don't come and choose me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, and it shows the true artistry as well, because people, I mean, over a 40-year span, nobody can stay like popular in the mainstream for every single year. I mean, it's just like not possible. So you got to ride the rough with the smooth,
Yeah.
and the fact that you keep that core audience. I mean, they say if you can really capture 1,000 people, you'll be all right. You can sort of manage through the tough times with that hardcore fan base. So that's really great that that works, and it's the same throughout the whole scene. You know, if you talk to Jenny and Darren from Rebellion, they'll tell you themselves that they've been DIY all the way through, and Viva La Rock magazine
Yeah.
has been DIY. There's just 3 people, and you can't have
Yeah.
these big bloated magazines or festivals anymore because they'll just lose money so easily. So yeah, it's really cool to hear
Mhm.
your story. So thank you.
In a lot of ways, we're kind of a lot much better placed to survive this pandemic than the big industry people who've drained away millions of pounds, because they waste so much. That's the thing, they
Yeah,
waste. We're lean and mean, and we know how to be flexible and to deal with these sort of problems. And I'm convinced we will come back, and
yeah,
there will be a small band scene and a club scene again after this. And I very much hope festivals like Rebellion recover as well and are able to carry on. I think it's a very close-knit scene, and people stick up for each other, and it will do.
yeah, definitely. No, totally. Okay, I've just got one last question for you. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the collaborations you've done over the years, because I know you've worked with Die Totenhausen. They performed as your backing band on the album Useless. What are some of the other collaborations you've done that you're really pleased about?
Um, what other collaborations have I done? I keep on getting asked to do sort of strange collaboration. I did a ska version of Gary Gilmore's Eyes with the Finnish band. That was
All
an
right,
odd one.
that's cool.
Yeah, it was great. I thought, well, that can't be done. But it sort of worked. Very, very odd.
Excellent.
And in fact, I've worked with a lot of bands where I travel. I worked with another Finnish band called Punk Lyrics OK. We did an EP together. I've worked with Susie Nos Quattro who are a Spanish punk pop band, Catalan punk pop band. We
Cool.
put out an EP together, and they members of that later came to be the Bored Teenagers, the backing band I use when I travel around with the band. I've worked with the Garden Gang in Germany, a nice sort of glam punk band from Solna, Germany. We've done stuff together. It's such a long list, actually.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
I think it's just nice not to be, obviously I work solo for most of the time, but that doesn't mean I don't get on with people, and it's nice to kind of share it around a bit sometimes and not just be useful. You always learn when you work with other people, and it's always interesting. It always brings, more colours to the palette, really.
Yeah, definitely. I've been in a lot of bands as a drummer since I was like 12 or 13. And I know like just working together that closely and starting to get successful is just so much fun and it's brilliant. But like when it goes wrong, it can be like so devastating, like the end of a marriage. So at the moment, like I write my own music and DJ, and I'm just like, I'm flying because I'm just like, no one's telling me what to do or taking my money. I'm just doing it. So I can see both sides of the coin.
It's great to have that independence. And what I really like about these collaborations that I do is you never get a chance to get stuck in a rut and have these kind of inter-band squabbles. That's the worst thing when you're in a band and you'll start getting on each other's nerves. It's like it really is. Like the honeymoon period all the time when you work with bands for a short time. You'll get on, you'll enjoy it, you'll give each other a buzz doing it, and then you move on and do something else.
Thank you so much.
All right, Paula, you take care.
Yeah, take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks a lot for your time. Bye. Hey guys, DJ Paula Frost here from Way Out Radio, the one and only punk and reggae station, broadcasting every week. Go to wayoutradio.com for more. So I just want to tell you guys about the brand new fan club we've just launched. It's absolutely amazing. You can choose from contributing £5, £10 or £20 per month to keep the station alive, pay our guests handsomely and keep music money in the musician's pocket and in the punk world and in the reggae world. So find out more about that at wayoutradio.com. Thank you very much.